Chapter 22. Gemini. It was impossible to say how long I napped since my interface clock was frozen, but when I woke, I followed the same ritual I did back at the Foundation after sleeping. I perused my log as Priya snoozed on my shoulder with one leg thrown over my waist. You have completed the quest. Gather your allies. Find your party members in Cern's depths. Objective: locate Brugh. Complete. Objective: locate Machini. Complete. Objective: locate Ticini. Complete. Objective: locate Amelia. Complete. Objective: locate Giles. Complete. Objective: locate Priya. Complete. Objective: locate Yakol. Complete. Objective: locate Liatra. Complete. Rewards: you received 5,000 XP per party member recovered. Bonus objective: locate all party members. Complete. Bonus XP: 15,000. The lake's glassy surface was still, but motion caught my eye further up the beach, and I turned to discover it was Giles. He sat cross-legged, working at something with both hands in his lap. My arm slid out from beneath Priya so her head rested on the rolled fur. Then I slipped away without waking her. Because my elven mentor sat about 20 yards up the beach, I could whisper out of earshot of the snoozing party. Mind some company? I gestured toward the packed sand next to him. He nodded at the same spot in invitation. The curved knife he kept in his boot shaved a sliver from a thick piece of wood in his other hand. My eyes widened when I spied the detail of the elven figure he created. Shallow lines cut in the head drew long strands of hair that draped over elegantly smoothed shoulders. He'd notched a narrow nose on the face, but the figure lacked eyes. Dude, that's beautiful. A gift for your son. Oh, wow. Thank you. Jarn will love it. A pleasure. He is a fine boy, strong-willed like his parents. I only regret my station in Milbury Peaks has kept me away. It would be nice to give him something to associate with me. I love how open you are about that. Giles looked up. Why would I be otherwise? I stuck a finger in the packed sand, then drew a circle. Humans in my world aren't so forthcoming about their emotions. An uncle like you might buy a child something they know he or she will love, so they'll remember them when they aren't around. But they won't state that reason outright. Maybe it's because their true intent is to give the child happiness, and I'm just a cynic. The latter wouldn't surprise me, but knowing what I've gathered as a long-time partner to Brugh and in my dealings with the humans in Broomhill, I could see why you'd think the former to be true. You humans do tend to be a bit mysterious. We humans? You elves live in a hidden city in the forest no one on the outside has ever seen and lived to tell about. Giles notched an eye into the figure with the sharp tip of the blade, then raised the implement to spy the tip. From his bag he drew a porous gray stone, then he worked it along the edge of the knife. I didn't say we weren't mysterious, just less so than humans when it comes to our intentions. We tend to be more forthright. I'm open to debate if you disagree. Debate with an elven prince who had hundreds of years on me was a sure path to frustration. One of many lessons I'd learned in Enora. I took a pass. Good. He pointed his knife across the water. I thought he might be indicating one of the platforms out there, the one that had risen when Yakol told his boot in the water, if I remembered right. So I concentrated my attention there. Do you see it? The cave through which Priya came? Wrong guess. I averted my gaze from the platform to the cave and nodded. Then I noticed a strange tint of color shimmering on its face. I blinked my eyes to clear them, then pushed myself up. Stepping closer to the shore, I squinted. The sky between the cliff faces above had dimmed so the strange light was clear. A barrier, Giles explained. We can't go that way. I turned and scanned Giles's dry clothes. You didn't swim over. How do you know it's impassable? He thrusted the knife over his shoulder. The cave mouth my party used to enter the lake beach wore the same shimmering obstruction. I dipped my chin, pressed a thumb and forefinger to my temples, and shook my head. Dude, you've got to be kidding me. Giles slid the stone back into his bag, then set to work notching out another eye in the wooden figure. He didn't speak. Why didn't you wake me? What was the point? It's apparent the Underlord has the upper hand, but that's no reason to interrupt the party's rest. Something tells me they're going to need it. Right. He usually was. So no way you can think of to penetrate them? Don't be stubborn. As Solara has plans for us all when we're above, so does Holcrum below. We're in his world now, and his lieutenant makes the rules. Better to prepare your mind for how you will defeat him and destroy that blasted tome once and for all, than to concern yourself with obstructions you can't control." Shit. I eyed the party members sleeping down the beach, except for Decini, whose eyes were open and flicking back and forth as if she read something in her interface. They all snoozed. A shiver crept up my back as I eyed the hairy spider slumbering, its legs folded underneath. One of its eyes flicked open, peered at me as if it knew it had become the source of my attention, then closed again. Gods, I hated spiders, but as I stared at the arachnid and considered how it was actually on my team, it was time for a shift in perspective. This led me to a new line of thought, and I gazed at each of the magic barriers before turning my attention to Priya. "We need to change the rules." "Oh?" He carved a line across the torso of the figure, rounding out an arm crossing its body. "What would you propose?" "A siege, of sorts." Giles lowered the figure to his lap, then turned his eyes on me. "I don't follow." "Caym is blocking our way out. He wants us on those platforms. Even though they disappeared when you left before, they've stayed this time. I don't know if they're going to teleport us out of here or what, but I don't want to play his game." "What's the alternative?" I gazed up and along the horizontal striations in the rocky cliffs. "There's no climbing out." My gaze followed the edges of the water all the way around. "We're hemmed in, so there's no swimming out." I met his gaze. "So maybe we wait him out." But if we're to believe he's lived in the depths for so long, what's his hurry? We have foodstuffs and supplies, and we could end up here for weeks. Are you prepared to wait that long?" An explosion showered us with sand from 10 feet beyond Giles. Another brought my head around to the entrance of the nearest tunnel, another further down the beach. The party scrambled from their slumber, arming themselves, turning in circles as the explosion surrounded us. A thick, scaly form burst from one of the remnant holes, then shot toward our party. I managed a quick analysis as Liatra dove and rolled away. A surge of hatred filled me at seeing one of my healers under attack. "Giant sandworm. Level 50, annelid. Located throughout Enora, these worms are known to attack traveling armies and other sources of vibration. Strength, 161. Dexterity, 35. Intelligence, 9. Wisdom, 1. Constitution, 121. Charisma, 1. A quick scan revealed the beast had 1,300 HP, and there were at least 5 others. But every time I took count, another hole exploded in the ground, and I couldn't be sure if I was seeing the same worms twice or a new one each time. But the count didn't matter when one of the worms burst from the soil and swung its high body in a wide arc, sending Machini sailing into the air end over end until she splashed into the lake halfway to the platforms. "He's got us," I muttered. Giles didn't need an explanation. "Right!" He signaled the remainder of the team, who swung their weapons violently but made little ground. "Go! Go! Go!" We swam to the platforms, a few of us meeting on one closest to the center of the lake. Although I was concerned the worms might burst out of the lake bed as well, none did. I ended up panting next to Machini and Amelia. Not that they panted. Those two were stamina specimens. I looked around at the other platforms and spotted Rashan first. "Everyone good?" The water in front of me splashed, then a round bubble formed at the exact moment the worms disappeared on the shore. It rose, then more water whooshed into it as it climbed from the surface and formed a humanoid. "Underlord Caym, level 40 water elemental. This water elemental cannot attack or be attacked." Caym's rumbling voice filled the air. "Welcome. Welcome yourself, you prick," Brugh barked from the platform to my left. "What say you cut it with the games and we get on with it, eh?" The sight of the demon in water form brought images of our past encounters, and I voiced my reflections. "It strikes me I've seen you as this hulking figure in dreams. During a challenge, formed in fire and constructed of the bodies of innocents you blew to smithereens. Now you manifest as a water elemental. I'm starting to wonder if you look anything like what you've presented." A shimmer of light passed over the elemental's form, then it gestured with its watery appendages. "You will soon see, Gemini Fowler." The stone platform split beneath us. I threw my arms out toward the edge, but found myself falling down a shaft, Amelia and Machini next to me. When the smooth-walled tunnel beneath us curved, we slammed into it, then slid down the tube. Moments later, we rolled into an open space, tumbling over loose objects that clattered until we came to a stop. I grumbled, then reached beneath my back to remove something jabbing at my spine. A long bone with knobs on either end like a femur. I tossed it away. Smooth obsidian walls surrounded us, and little specks of golden light shone inside them, illuminating the area. It was like standing in space. When Machini stood, bones clattered and bounced. More rattled behind me. Then Amelia rose from a pile, holding a skull. Humanoid. She tossed it to one side, then turned, giving the area a once-over. I followed her gaze upward and realized there was no ceiling to match the high walls. There might have been a rocky overhead up high, but the light from the walls didn't reach there. Why hadn't Caym waited until we were all on individual platforms before activating the trap doors that brought us down there? I rifled through my recollections. Rashan, Liatra, and Dacini shared a platform. Yakol and Giles, Amelia, Machini, and me. Before I completed the thoughts, distant clattering brought my head around, and I eyed the tops of the walls where a ceiling would have been. Hello? Giles' voice came back to me. I'm here. Yakol and his pets are with me. I raised my voice. Everybody sound off. Priya? Her voice was distant and came from the opposite side from Giles, just like we'd been arranged on the platforms above. I'm here. I recalled her standing alone on her platform, isolated. Everyone reported in turn. I stared up a long hallway of the black stone, then called out again. Okay, I've got Amelia and Machini. We'll come find the rest of you. Stay put. Brug's voice echoed in the distance. Sorry, Gemini. I'm not standing here with the bones while you all get yourselves into trouble. You stay put and I'll come find you. This isn't the time to debate. We've got numbers. Brug barked loud enough for all to hear. But I'm the highest level here and... Hey, what the hell? Grunts filled the air. Then Brug let out his patented war cry to kick up his offensive game. Even though his voice was the furthest from the others who checked in, the sound echoed clearly over what I thought of as cubicle walls. Underhanded dirty beast, I'll... A low guttural cry came to us. Then my interface popped a message. Lieutenant Nilza has killed Brug. No! I bellowed. Caym, that son of a bitch, had divided and conquered. Brug had been alone. That's why the Underlord released the traps. My mind instantly went to Priya, who was also isolated, but her voice had been the clearest of all, coming from the side opposite Giles. I scrolled through her abilities until I found a promising solution. Air Bomb. Black Mage. Required affinity. Shadow Magic. The caster is surrounded by an ethereal shield as she levitates, climbing 1 foot per second for 5 seconds. At the apex, the caster somersaults and slams to the ground, emitting an electric shockwave that stuns. Priya, focus on the direction of my voice and use your air bomb spell. You can target your landing zone from the pinnacle, right? Yes. Look for an open cube between the black walls. Target the center. Do it now. They've killed Brug. Light reflected off the kind of stalactite-covered ceiling one would expect to find in a cave as Priya's spell activated. It grew brighter, telling me she'd levitated higher and higher. When a wide orange target indicator appeared on the wall to my left, I muttered, "Close enough," then cringed in anticipation of her arrival. Priya slammed into the wall, then thumped hard to the floor. Bones flew in all directions when the shockwave sizzled outward. I raised my arms to protect my head from the flying projectiles, but they flew right by. After a quick check to ensure Amelia and Machini were okay, I ran to Priya. Well, at least something worked out as planned. I offered my hands, then lifted her to her feet. Not sure that's how I planned it. I couldn't see the floor to target it. We're lucky it worked at all, Amelia said. On guard! Giles' voice erupted from nearby. Yakol's wolf barked angrily, then growled like it was biting into something and swinging its head side to side as I'd seen before. He killed Brug. Now he's trying to take out Giles. We have to hurry. We sped up the hallway, then turned in the direction of Giles' voice at the first opportunity, but we ran into a dead end. I cursed as we turned, then sped back the way we'd come. The sounds of combat grew quieter as we progressed through the passages, but I couldn't find a direct line to our companions. My head throbbed more with tension in every passing moment. Priya grabbed my arm, and we all skidded to a halt. She pointed up. The walls are thick. Boost me up there.
I'll run along them to find Giles. Maybe I can help.
As much as I hated the idea, given the tense situation, I couldn't think of a better solution. She'd spent years of her life climbing trees and running along logs in the forest, so she was suited for the job. I lifted her, but she couldn't quite reach. On our second attempt, I boosted her and she jumped. Grabbing onto the wall, Priya kicked her feet until she stood atop it. She peered down.
They're wide. I'll be fine. Keep going.
She sped off down the wall. I shook my head, then beckoned Amelia over. Her swim to the platform had cleansed her porcelain face. You're next. Without argument, the elf mounted my interlocked hands, then jumped to the top of the wall. I was taken aback by the graceful way she clambered up. She set off in the direction Priya had gone without a word, shrugging her bow off her shoulder as she scurried along the wall. I faced Machini, then lowered my hands. She shook her head.
No, Master. Then you would be isolated. We cannot afford to lose you.
I'll be fine. Now come on. This time she shook her head more furiously and her cheeks reddened.
You're being hard-headed as usual. I'm not leaving you. You promised me free will despite the way you had to save me through the bonding when the Pride Master almost killed me. Now, I exercise it. Nothing you can say will change my mind. We are losing time, Master.
She pointed up the hallway in the direction we hadn't gone. I sighed, squinted hard at her, but relented. We finally found a left turn that would take us in the direction we wanted to go. The adjacent corridor was narrow and long, and I soon found myself imagining it would run right past Giles and company without an opportunity to turn left again. Even worse, a dead end that would cause us to backtrack and lose even more time. A flashing glow reflected off the high ceiling.
Priya cast Lightning Pulse 2. Critical hit. Unknown Necromancer. Minus 194 HP.
Well, Priya made it. Looks like they've encountered a necromancer.
I can see that, Master. Look.
She pointed ahead to the left, where a side corridor appeared. Good eye. We hustled around the corner, then sprinted toward our companions. Thanks to my daily focus on conditioning, my stamina bar sat firm at 75%. But if the run went on for much longer at that pace, I could count on its deterioration. 3 figures burst into view from our right. I ripped my katanas free of their sheaths, then jumped in front of Machini. My shoulders dropped as the familiar figures came fully into view. What the hell are you doing here?
A fine welcome, Master, Dicini said. We're looking for the fight, like you.
Yeah, but I said to stay put.
And you're sometimes an idiot,
Rashan said. Liatra shrugged but said nothing, a testament to her usual quiet demeanor.
Master, Machini said, there is no time.
She shoved me forward. As we all ran, I turned toward her. You're assertive today. Where'd all this come from?
I don't like this place, nor any place where I cannot step into the sunshine at a whim.
You don't think you might have mentioned that before now?
What, and be left behind to be outdone by my sister?
She sprinted ahead, easily outpacing me. I didn't care what her motivation was, as long as she wanted to complete the mission. We came to a dead end with forks leading right and left. My head jerked in both directions, but Dicini burst past.
Louder in this direction.
We turned right, following my remaining tank. The corridor ended, and we followed another turn to the left. Flashes of magical light reflected in the distance, and not just from above this time. Weapons ready, I ordered. Ahead, Dicini ripped her second sword free. The thought of complaining about combat positioning crossed my mind, but the sprinting was taking its toll, and I wanted to have stamina left to fight when we arrived. At least Rashan was behind me. That's no good. What if something comes up behind her? I turned and gestured so she'd pass me. She ran ahead. When we neared the end of the corridor, I peered over my shoulder. My jaw dropped. With a tug on the hood on her robe, I brought us to a stop, then gazed into her oversized sienna eyes. Stop just at the entrance and start healing. No smites. After she nodded, I dashed into the room with my swords at the ready. My heart thumped against my ribs. Hordes of skeletons jostled against one another, the front lines being driven back by Yakol and his pets, who stood in defensive stances before the Beastmaster in the far corner. Giles fought in the corner to our right, the skeletal minions crowding him so he could only manage short strokes with his daggers, despite his superior level. Priya and Amelia stood atop the wall, casting and firing projectiles into the crowd. It's chaos,